Good day to you. You know, as a professor of communication, I'd like to think of myself as open minded to any kind of new technology when it comes to advancing human communication. But I gotta be honest with you, when it comes to video gaming, I have a lot of reservations. And a big reason for that is because I have a son, he's in his 20s now, but he was buried in the basement for years, not months, years. And all kinds of sounds were coming up from the basement that were kind of out of worldly to me. And it was just about him gaming. And I really don't know whether the impact of gaming on young people, especially for an extended period of time, makes them able to socialize well and handle real people in the real world. That's not a comment so much about my son as it is about the technology in general. So we're taking on a subject today that I do have some opinions about, some direct opinions about, and it's also a subject that I don't consider myself as well versed in as other subjects because it's for a different generation, the video gaming that's been going on for the last few years. So we're going to talk about video gaming today. We're also going to talk a little bit about social media, although we kind of blended some of this material from this chapter into our last class. Nevertheless, we'll try and cover both of them today as we handle, again, another step in the advancement of new media, getting away from legacy media, using the internet. The internet is the basis for everything that we're talking about today. So where did video games come from? Well, there was a chase to make computers come to life. We know that connecting them and having them communicate with each other was an endeavor of the military and of universities, but there were others who wanted to do different things with computers to make them more human-like. And one of them was British mathematician Alan Turing. And he developed something called the Turing test. And that was a test to examine whether a computer could match a human's intelligence. And we've seen examples of that in chess matches, for example, where famous chess players are playing computers. So, and that's actually what the British mathematician Alan Turing did. He wrote a program for a computer to play chess. And this led to other creations of video games, if you want to think of them that way, or games played on computers. And one of the next ones was tennis. Tennis was created in 1958. That was the very first video game. Computers were around then. There was no laptop computer. There was no desktop computer. It was all mainframe computers. But the very first video game goes back quite far, doesn't it? And then in 1961, a group of MIT students, that's Massachusetts Institute of Technology, they developed a video game called Space War in 1961. That kind of fits in with that era, right? Because we had a lot of space exploration, including landing on the moon. It wasn't until the company Atari, however, popularized video games. It was founded by Nolan Bushnell, and his very first game that became popular was Pong. And I actually remember Pong. It came out in the 1970s. And what you would do is you would buy your own separate monitor. You wouldn't use a TV. You'd buy a monitor, and then you'd have two controllers, and they didn't do much. They were basically toggle sticks, and you had a paddle that you could control with it. And the paddle would go up and down, and the ball would bounce, and it would increasingly get faster and faster, and you're playing against somebody else who has another paddle going up and down. Very primitive, black and white. But that was sort of the forerunner of video games. These kinds of games, though, were not played in the home so much as they were played in arcades. Arcades like you still find down the New Jersey shore, but at this time, you could find arcades in the mall. So Atari took the success of this Pong game, and it launched the 2600 console. And that launched what is known as the home game market, the home video game market, bringing video games out of the arcade, just like TV brought movies out of the theaters into the home. That's what's going on here. That company was eventually sold to Warner. Let's talk about the importance of arcades. I tell you, the arcade was where it was at when I was in high school. If you had nothing to do and you didn't want to be at home and it wasn't possible to be outside because of weather, you went to the mall. When you go to the mall, you don't have any money as a teenager, so you go hang out at the arcade where it just costs a quarter to spend some time. And so the arcades were full essentially of teenagers in the 1970s and to some extent in the 80s. And just to give you an idea of the scale of how much arcade video game was being played, in 1981, $900 million was brought in by quarters put into arcades, into video games in arcades. Mainly arcades were appealing to males. You didn't find too many females in there through at this time until Pac-Man. even though the word man is in that title. Pac-Man opened up video gaming to have appeal to females, and eventually Pac-Woman was introduced to appeal to that demographic. Now comes Nintendo. Nintendo revives the home console market. It went static after a while, no new major developments. At the time, Nintendo was a 100-year-old company, but it kicked off the video game console surge, the surge to buy consoles, with its Nintendo Entertainment System. And that included a bunch of games which are still classic today, which you still know about, which you probably know about even though they came out before you were born, like Super Mario, Donkey Kong, and Legend of Zelda. Sega, SEGA, was another company that started competition with Nintendo. So just like you've had past competitions in this class for media enterprises, you've got one going on here. Then, during the competition phase, Nintendo introduces the Game Boy. The Game Boy was about this big, about the size of a shoe, and one player played at one end, the other player played at the other end. I can remember laying on the carpet on my stomach, playing this game with my brother for hours, playing football on this Game Boy. So the developments continue though. Sony comes out. Sony, the big Japanese electronics manufacturer, comes out with the PlayStation, and later Microsoft comes out with the Xbox, and those two are still competing today. The PlayStation was the first to make substantial sales from what are known as 3D polygon graphics. 3D polygon graphics advanced video gaming into that third dimension and made it possible for characters to seem more real. PlayStation 5 was a big forerunner to the development of this technology. The Xbox was built for online play, so it's combining the internet with video gaming in the home, and it's opening up video gaming to the entire world. That really is a profound development in the development of video gaming. Nintendo came out with the Wii system. It was meant to incorporate physical activity in video gaming, so if you're playing tennis, you're actually holding a fake racket, and you're pretending to play tennis. Now let's talk about some conflicts that came out as a result of some of the content of video gaming, including Death Race. Death Race upset critics because it was about running over people with cars. And then there's Atari's rape-themed game, Custer's Revenge. And then there's Mortal Kombat, which many of you in this class know, which features outrageous violence. And then there's Grand Theft Auto, which gave players the freedom to go through any path in the city to commit crimes. So that's a lot to take in for a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, I think. Maybe not any more than movies, maybe not any more than what you can get on the internet, but the intensity with which people play video games. I wonder if there's some effects on young people who play these kind of games in terms of being desensitized to violence out there. That's for you to decide. Now let's talk about Pokemon. Pokemon fits in with this subject as well. It came out from Japan. It came out of the anime tradition in Japan, and cartoons. And it was meant to be a wholesome, friendly, combat-based game, but wholesome and friendly, and it was launched in 1996. And it had a feature to it that was called augmented reality, because the Pokemon game that caught fire was the one where people were using their cell phones to go all over and to locate a Pokemon character. So you have people in the real world, and they're using a virtual game to interact with each other. That's augmented reality. So really what's happened to video games is they became mass consumed. Video games are part of mass consumption. They are a form of mass media. The consoles that you have in your home, they are the media content delivery devices. In fact, the Xbox is actually pitched as a general all-purpose entertainment hub because you can get cable television, you can get television on your Xbox, you can get internet on the Xbox. Video games, similar to movies, they have stars. People who record, rock musicians record soundtracks, and John Madden, etc., stars in video games. He's dead now. He's a football commentator, but video games have stars, and players are communicating in headsets, so they are closed off to the rest of the world when they're wearing those headsets. They don't hear anything around them. Sometimes they don't even see anything next to them. Some video games are even more popular than movies. That's how much video has spread into mass culture. Video games actually are a spectator sport. You know that because of PewDiePie, right? The Swedish video gamer who sits in his basement in Sweden making millions of dollars and commentating on video games. So we watch people video gaming, and this happens at ESU. We have esports. It's a club that goes on at ESU. Video commentary is another part of making video game a mass consumed product. We have Twitch. Twitch is one of the main streaming services for video gaming. It's in a lot of trouble right now because it allowed the New York mass shooter to stream his shootings. And ESPN shows a lot of these video gaming competitions, so it's not like a counterculture movement that's going on. This is big media video gaming. And in fact, video games in contemporary culture today, they're used for meetings, they're used for weddings, and they're used for concerts. Yeah, that's right. Video games in the background, it's in the foreground, it's blending in. Now, what about diversity and representation in video gaming, like we've talked about in television? Once again, characters in video gaming typically are white, male, and heterosexuals. We also know, though, however, in contrast, that LGBTQ people and Asians, I'm mentioning them because they are more likely to play video games than others. Research shows that they spend more time video gaming, yet they're not as well represented. That is not completely the case, though. It's not absolute because, as you know, you can create your own profile in a video game. You can create your own character. And Xbox's Saints Row, for example, allows for a wide range of body diversity. So it's not like the possibilities are not existing out there for there to be diversity. It's a question, perhaps, of cultural change that is still in a slow process of taking place. So I'm leaving with a short lecture today on video gaming and social media, which we ended up not talking about because it was included in the last class, but it's a good way to have a Friday class, I hope. Have a great day.